It's kind of Thursday. And you know what that means? That means it's time to ignite the dynamite. The day after the dynamite, right here on Day After Dynamite. And welcome to Day After Dynamite. I'm Will Washington. You may notice I'm not in my normal setup. I'm in a setup that's probably a little familiar to a lot of people, but regardless, this is where I'm doing Day After Dynamite today. It's a late night edition of Day After Dynamite, and I'm not alone here. I'm joined by the one and only True God. True God, I'm glad to finally have you here on the show.
My man. It's my pleasure to be here, especially for this. We got a lot to talk about, so it was a good show tonight, man. Really good show.
A real good show. I thought especially the first hour was a remarkably eventful first hour.
Yeah, for sure.
And I want to let everybody know that if you head on over to youtube.com/Fightful, this is still Day After Dynamite, even though for a lot of people, especially where I am right now, which is in Southern California, it is not exactly the Day After Dynamite. It's only, 10 p.m.? But even still, we want your super chats. We want your Humper chats. youtube.com/Fightful is the way to send those super chats. And then you can also send us your Humper chats. That's at humperchats.com. And so, all right, I'm just going to address something that probably doesn't matter to anybody else here, but being here on Denise's setup, and it's probably my headphones, but I am like blowing up in my own ears. I'm hearing myself very, very loudly. And so I'm like talking quieter than I would, but not for any reason other than the fact that I don't want to blow out my own eardrums. So if people notice that I seem less me, that's the reason why. Not that I'm trying to be quiet for any other reasons. But yes, as this is Denise's setup, as you can all see here. And for people in the chat asking, where's Denise? That is literally in the other room. But let's see. Uriel sends a super chat, says, Will broadcasting from Salcedo Studios. I guess that's a way to put that. Yeah, what do we got here? Because, like, I haven't actually done... Denise, you have CM Punk's DVD just, like, sitting back here in full. Best in the world of 3-disc set, just open. You can't even see that in your setup.
We should bring that. You should bring that to the fore.
I was pointing out your CM Punk Best in the World for everything we've seen in your setup over the years.
You never saw this?
No, never seen that you have literally this broken case. CM Punk Best in the World DVD.
Hey, yo.
You're exposing me?
Yes. Anyway, folks. So, speaking of which, I suppose that's an elephant in the room we have to talk about.
All right.
CM Punk, pretty much since the last episode I did of the show, which was last Friday. So I talked a little bit about last week CM Punk's Instagram post and some of the things that have transpired since then have caused a little bit of a stir in the wrestling biz.
A little bit, not too heavy, right? Just a little bit.
Little bit. So we had a John Moxley, Renee Paquette podcast that dropped. It's a really good podcast. If you haven't had a chance to listen to it, I think it's a really, really good listen. I know a lot of the quotes that have made their way around from the... Let's get rid of the super chat there. By the way, thank you for the super chat. But a lot of the quotes that have made their way around have kind of centered around the idea of him basically trashing Punk, a lot of the thing. And if you listen to it, one, he never addresses CM Punk by name. The most you get is what's his dick. And on top of that, those quotes, literally any of the discussion around CM Punk lasts 4 minutes tops. I didn't think it topped any of that, but it's a really, really good, interesting listen. I thought really centers around Moxley's. You get a good idea of his creative process. He talks about kind of his match structure, all of that stuff. I thought there was some really, really, really good stuff in that interview. And it's almost a shame that it all got thrown aside for a handful of quotes. Like people really centered around the stuff about his contract and how he was working out a contract last summer. He explains that. He explains in the interview
Yep.
that he specifically didn't want to commit to anything long term because he was feeling good out of rehab, but he didn't know how good he was going to feel.
Right.
And so for him, it was a case of not wanting to commit to anything long term because we see it all the time. He could very well have relapsed. And for him, it was like, I want to focus on the here and now right now, but I am here for you right now, and I'm here doing this.
Yeah. As everybody knows, I'm pretty outspoken when it comes to Twitter. But but I've said this and I meant it. Like I think people take things out of context. I think people want to blow things up, and I ain't call him what's his dick and stuff like that. But when you watch the actual video of them talking, he doesn't look like he's like angry or malicious. It just looks like he's just talking about it kind of like and matter of factly and just like, oh, blah blah blah. And he didn't really want to address it anyway. He says it himself. So I feel like people are gonna take that and run with it because it's a headline, right? So it's a headline. It's what gets people talking. But there's a whole podcast, and like I said, I love watching. I love listening to wrestlers talk about their process, and same way Mox was like, we're talking about this, we should be talking about Kenny, and his match, and we talked the great show we had, the great pay-per-view they just had, and that's a very true statement. I think the drama really, really kind of takes away from the art form of wrestling. I've always felt like, and
And it's been real bad these last couple of weeks. Like I felt like, and I tweeted this yesterday, I said that the thing that to me, I feel like the quote you could tell Mox was most irritated by was the fact that he had to even have this conversation on a week where he would have rather have been talking about Vikingo and Kenny.
Yep.
And you could tell he at least liked what he saw of that match. He admitted, obviously, he didn't get to see all of it because he had to run out after the match and jump him. But from what he got to see, he was talking about how much he liked all of that. And it's almost unfortunate. There was also the did you get a chance to listen to Meltzer's kind of, I don't want to call it apology, but more so just his
I didn't listen
remorse
to it
over kind of everything that was said. And
Yeah,
everything that kind of spawned the response from.
Yeah, I didn't listen to the whole thing, but I did. Everybody puts it out and talks about it, and I was just like, look, man, like, at the end of the day, this all started from something completely irrelevant to what's going on right now. Like, whatever Punk's deal is, whether it's heat there, whether it's being worked on, whatever it is, we don't need those stories, because whatever's going on right now between anybody backstage or whatever, it's really not our business. That's for one. It's really not our business. And two, this was August when this
happened. It was last August in September. Like,
we are
that's the part that you could tell Moxley was most frustrated by. Is like, it had nothing to do with anything he's working on right now. And
I've said, obviously I said this, like, everybody knows I'm a big Punk fan and all stuff like that. But at the end of the day, like, I get every side of it, right? Like, if I'm watching somebody and I'm chilling, minding my business, and I react to stuff a lot quicker than a lot of people. So, if I'm minding my business and I see a story come out and it starts making the rounds, I might feel compelled to address it, whether or not it's right or wrong in the moment. Everybody's different. So with Punk, I understood why he might have done it. I probably wouldn't have done it that way. I think there's an easy way to just say, because I think he did it before in his story where he says, like, observers telling lies, or he did something like that, like a joke or something on Instagram, like a month or two ago. I forgot exactly how he worded it, but it was like kind of like tongue in cheek as a joke. So I think, and I mean, he was just at he's at the New Japan show, and he's sitting in the same row, basically as Meltzer. So I was just interesting, because it's like, why do these stories keep coming out? Because what we're talking about, day after Dynamite, we have great wrestling happening with people that are actually on the show right now. We should be focusing on that.
That's something I actually wanted to ask you about. So obviously I've been traveling pretty much all day. I did get a chance to watch Dynamite. I watched it on the plane. And then
it's crazy.
I watched the main event while standing in line with Sean Ross Sapp while he's getting his rental car, which ended up taking 3 hours. I ended up leaving him.
Whoa.
There was no way. He literally got his car like an hour ago.
Wow.
And
Okay.
at a certain point, I had to go. So, but that's where I ended up watching the main event. But I watched Dynamite all scattered throughout, and I've caught myself up on it. But the thing I
Yeah.
haven't gotten to see is All Access. I haven't seen any parts of All Access, but I know you saw it. So I'm curious, before we get into Dynamite, what did you think of All
Man,
Access?
look, man, like you know me, man. The drama of wrestling, it annoys me very much. And watching the show, like, and I hate to use this example. Back when WWE had like Total Divas and stuff like that, I didn't watch Total Divas. You know, like that's just not my bag. That's not my bag. You know, and so I kind of felt like when Rose to the Top came out, I actually watched Rose to the Top, and I was like,
did too.
and I thought it was fairly interesting. Everybody knows, not the biggest Cody fan, but like I was just
Speaking
like,
of which, we got a super chat here from Krish who says, "You guys think Cody finishes the story? He was previously a minus 550, now only 450." I mean, look, I don't think smart money typically doesn't come in on that stuff until day of, maybe the day before. But
if you're first of all, I just want to say, if you're betting on wrestling for real, like you need help. You need help if you bet on wrestling. And this is from a brother who I bet on hockey, soccer, basketball, but wrestling, that's like, come on, man. But I do think Cody finishes the story. I think he does. I think he has to. You know, Roman's been champion for what, 900 days, something like that.
I think it's like 940 something now.
Yeah, it's, and I think if Cody doesn't do it at WrestleMania, it kind of cheapens this whole run. I've always been a believer, and I know, because I know you're like an encyclopedia of wrestling knowledge, and I used to be like that for a while, like especially when I first got into wrestling. And so I remember like 90% of the time when the Rumble winner goes into WrestleMania, they usually would win the title. And you know, obviously,
that used
like,
to be the case, but pretty much since
not
like 08,
anymore. Like it's weird. And I feel like, look, if we go on old school, Cody wants the winged eagle belt back and all that stuff. Go full stop. He got to go over clean. Let him go over Roman. Roman hasn't been beat since pre-COVID. That's how crazy this is. He's got to finish the story. And me even saying that takes a lot to say that for me. But like at the end of the day, he's over. He's selling merch. I mean, he's basically the equivalent of what they say, you know, kissing babies, shaking hands, and all of the stuff. He's doing what you're supposed to do as a future face of the company, and he's.
I went to a house show on Sunday.
I saw.
And you know, I posted the picture of my kids and their friends and Cody. Let me tell you, that man, Cody Rhodes, stuck around. I want to say his song looped through at least 5 times, because they were playing his song as the show ended, and he stuck around and shook every hand, held every baby, he took selfies with everybody he could. That man, you can tell, is having the time of his life in the role he's in right now. And I feel like the company needs that. But more than that, I don't want to dwell too much on this because this is Day After Dynamite.
Yeah.
But I will say that the reason for me that I think it's time for Cody to win, or anybody to win at this stage, is that we have now cycled through 3 years of potential top babyface challengers. But it's been a long time since any heels have gotten to sniff the top of the card with the top babyface. And I think, look, we've seen it before, right? We saw, you know, Triple H got to have a really long run at the top, cycling through babyface after babyface after babyface from 02 to 05. About that same length of run, about 3 years. And then we saw them kind of snap back in the other direction, where it was like, now it's John Cena in 05. And he got to then cycle through the top heels. And I think in that same kind of cyclical nature, they have to start cycling through some top heels in the same way that baby faces have gotten to with Roman.
For sure. I do agree with you there. And I think, you know, I was on board with Roman losing like a year ago. You know, I was, and I think the reason why is I won't say a year ago. I would have been okay with him keeping the title this long if he didn't have both. And I think that's what kind of kills it for me. Like, I got the whole thing of like, yeah, he's got both belts, he's unstoppable, but there's so many other talents in WWE who could possibly be given a shot. And I feel like Cody as champion opens up way more. And plus, man, Roman, he's barely there. Basically, like, I don't watch WWE that often, but the few times I have this year, Roman wasn't on the show.
Right. And that's the other thing too, is I think fans at this stage probably deserve to see a champion more often.
Yeah.
Jose Flores sent in a super chat, says 95% positivity on that podcast, talking about the Renee Young podcast with John Moxley.
Yeah.
Also felt like that episode really showed who was on whose side could be wrong. I do think we got a little bit of that as well.
Yeah.
Oh, and we have a visitor, and it seems to be Mr. Deshaun Ross Sapp.
Oh, shit.
It took me longer to get my rental car than it took me to watch Dynamite. By far.
You said 3 hours, right? 3 hours, right?
3 hours.
That's crazy.
3
Like
hours.
I said, I finished watching Dynamite in line with Sean.
Were y'all at LAX?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, that makes sense.
Anybody who has got Thrifty set up, cancel it. Don't do it.
It's the whole area though, right? Because it's Thrifty, and it was, I think, who were the other two in there?
Hertz wasn't that bad. It was Thrifty and Budget. If it's either of those, cancel it. Don't do it. Go back home even. I don't know. Buy a skateboard. I don't know anything besides what I did tonight. It was miserable, but just wanted to say, I just wanted to thank you all for doing this show at this hour, because I know it's very late, but thank you, fellas.
It's definitely late here. I know where y'all at. It's not. You know, like I got a daughter, and it's like it's 1:42.
Yes.
So, you know, school is like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, but you know, it's all good. You know.
Well, I appreciate you two for doing this, and again, Thrifty can go to hell.
Sean Ross Sapp, everybody.
He's right on Hertz though. He's right on Hertz. He's definitely right on Hertz. I use Expedia and to do everything. So that's a cheap plug. That's a cheap plug for Expedia.
I try to book offsite if I'm booking LAX.
Yeah,
just because I feel like I can go a lot quicker.
And plus, I travel a lot more than the average person, I feel like. So yeah. So I've been to LAX maybe like 3 or 4 times. Last year was like my last time out there, but I never rent cars in LA. I mean, but apparently Cam was talking about Uber earlier, and he said we split in Ubers because like in LA, I know it's crazy. Like when I'm Atlanta is crazy.
Here to Denise's house was like $20. It wasn't too bad.
It's not bad.
Nice lady too, who picked me up. She was like listening to classical music the whole time. And yeah, I don't know. She was interesting, but either way, I wanted to get back to really quick. Let me make sure I read every super chat before I. Here's another one from Jose. He says, "I'm a big Punk fan, but you can either be right or happy. I'm 37. Sometimes it just ain't worth it. I'm not in the spotlight though. Who am I to say? I mean, yeah, I think it's hard to kind of evaluate mindsets, but I think that." Colt does this thing, and it's really funny. You could even go back to the Colt Cabana podcast, where he can never just unload on the topic at hand.
Nope.
He will start on one thing, and then he's like, and another thing, and then he'll like throw 4 or 5 people in the crossfire. But
you know what's funny? Everything he does is 100% punk rock kid style. Like, if you ever went to school with the punk rock kid, and they go on a tangent or they get angry, it just, they don't have a cap on it. And I get it. And I've said this, I said it earlier. I said, man, and you know, I was referencing like All Access too, you know, and I'm just thinking like, I don't want to be that famous as like the CM Punks, the Kenny Omegas, because you say something out the way to me, I'm gonna threaten you in a different way. I handle stuff a little differently. So it's like, I can't grasp like seeing like dirt sheets is whatever, but it's like if I was sitting at home doing a couple Instagram comments for like maybe a couple months, just really stupid Instagram comments on Danhausen's Instagram and Brody King's Instagram hanging out. I'd probably react if I saw people putting stuff on my name, especially if I don't feel it's true. But once again, it's all kind of perspective, because Punk could feel like this isn't the way it went down. Whereas it's, in reference to the Mox thing and the Rocky idea, if Punk never saw Rocky, he probably was like, the hell are you talking about? Where Mox is like, no, this is a great idea. You got to listen. Look. And it's like, it's just perspective. And I think sometimes in wrestling, we kind of get away from the fact that it's like, I don't really think it's even really a right or wrong in this situation. It's just different perspectives. I think maybe Punk could have handled it better. Maybe, whoever it is talking to dirt sheets and putting these little stories out, like, maybe you should shut up. Like, this is like, it's not really.
What was interesting though, and this is the thing I said last week. I said this on Grapsity, but I do have an issue with the fact that what Punk was responding to was a message board post by Dave Meltzer.
Yeah.
And I think, even though I had seen the post, I saw it floating around a little bit.
Yeah.
But I don't think it had as much reach as it would have if Punk hadn't put a magnifying glass on it. I think it was
fair.
really, really kind of a niche thing that was maybe making some rounds, but I think Punk's response to it put such a magnifying glass on it.
Absolutely.
And I think that it's just one of those things where, so I want to talk about Sean Ross Sapp's report from Listing Your Boy yesterday.
Yeah.
Where he kind of put out some of the details that he's learned about Punk, and that Punk is willing to work with, he's willing to work with the Elite. We know that. He's willing to work with Kenny. He's willing to work with the Bucks, and he is willing to make that return. And there's, at least before last Thursday, there were people who wanted to see that. And I feel like
Jim Ross said today he still wants to see it. So
yeah, Jim Ross said it. I feel like, man, before Thursday, and maybe, I said back in September when all this went down, when everything went down, when everybody's like, oh, it's over, CM Punk's run in AEW is a thing of the past. I said, I think cooler heads will prevail. And that was what I said at the time. And today, if you had asked me before last Thursday, I would have said cooler heads are going to prevail, and they're going to get to a resolution that sees CM Punk back on AEW television. Right now, I feel like maybe that's lost a few steps, but I think, as with all things in wrestling, I think still my gut feeling, and I feel like Jim Ross does, that cooler heads will prevail.
Well, my thing, and I said this on Twitter too, and I've said this to a couple people just, privately when talking about this. It's just like, the issue is literally Tony Khan in a room, CM Punk, I guess Kenny, even though, reports say it's not really a thing with Kenny, the Bucks. You got to sit down with those guys and just say, hey, look, this is what it is, and let's try to work that out. Whether or not that's been attempted or not, who knows? But I think we need, we kind of need to let that happen. Because I think that the report said that there was positive conversations between Punk and AEW, if I remember correctly. And I'm thinking, well, if that's the case, then, I was like, I get how that Instagram post might have made a little, a little touchy, but I feel like, to me, and this is me, and this is why when I used to work in wrestling for companies, I didn't understand it then. But people would have trouble, and I worked for an indie company. And when I worked with an indie company, I would have wrestlers, they would come and it's like basically the same stuff you're seeing on All Access, the same stuff you're hearing about in dirt sheets. I would see it up close, and I'd be like, just go talk to each other like normal damn adults. Like, brother, we are men, we're grown men. Like, we can communicate with each other. If we have a discrepancy, you can either handle it two ways. You can, where I come from, brother, if you got a problem, you go outside and handle it. Or if you want to be adult about it, you can talk it out and move on. And I feel like in a business where there's millions and millions of dollars to be made, I'm not like I just it's silly, and a lot of people were telling me for months like Punk would never try to work it out. He'd never apologize, and I was like I have an slight inkling that he would, and he was like I don't think so because he's this and that, and I was like not that I know anything, but it's like I just feel like from what I've heard he was receptive to the idea, and so I think
and I've heard the same thing that that there's willing to be apologies made. Like the people thought I was really coming down on Punk when I used his words against him, where he said the apology needs to be as loud as the disrespect.
I responded
That's actually
to you
one
too.
of my core beliefs. That's not me coming down on Punk. Genuinely,
No.
I'll tell you, one of my parenting philosophies is that if my children, like if my wife and I get in an argument or something like that, and my kids had to see it, then my kids also have to see us apologize to each other. That's our policy, is that if we make up, it has to be in front of the kids if they saw us fall out.
Absolutely.
Because wherever, I think it sends the right message that whatever fallout there was, whatever fault there was, however it took place, that's how it needs to be rectified. And so I think that for Punk to have basically done the gripe bomb, for him to have cut the scrum the way he did, that is ultimately, I think, the piece that he's got to give in the same format, even if it's at another scrum, kind of atone for all of that and say, like, look, I was in the wrong space, I was in the wrong headspace there. Whatever he's going to say to apologize for that, I think it needs to be in that kind of space.
And I just want to point out, because you were at the scrum and you were there.
Hold on, what really quick, by the way, I would just like to point out, at the time, a lot of people gave your boy shit about my question about Jon Moxley at the time. They were like, oh, how could you ask him that when he just went off on blah, 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 and you asked him something about the match with Moxley? But I will tell you, I have seen over the last 24 hours, ever since that Moxley podcast came out, I have seen people using the clip from his answer to my question.
Yep. I referenced it. I was referencing it because I said, I feel like this report that came out about what happened in August before they got to the match, after the match, and I think because I was like, I watched it in the theater, all out in the theater, and I think briefly kind of remember after Punk wins, he says something to Moxley, like as he's laying there, it looks like he says something after he pins him, and it's no different than I guess when MJF pinned Punk in Chicago and he laid on his chest for like 10 seconds to talk to him. It happens in wrestling all the time when people they're just thanking you for doing the honors of putting them over. And then when you ask the question and he, Moxley, we got a lot of things in common and we weren't this and that and this other stuff. Like everything he said, I felt like I was like, that didn't sound like a guy he had true heat with. And like I said, all this stuff is miscommunication. And this is the problem that I have in wrestling. I've gone through it myself. I've had a ton of people. I know people who've gone through it, and you watch it every day. There's miscommunication, and I think I'm gonna say this. And I've said this on Twitter, and I will continue to say it. Wrestling is high school. Like it's high school, and I will always say. I'm
going to ask you, what do you think of All Access?
I think it's a good and bad idea, and and so here's why. Right, I enjoyed the show from a strictly entertainment perspective, but I feel like because Britt Baker's she's a baby face now, basically. A very interesting baby face because it's hard to look at Britt as a complete baby face. But I just felt like some of the stuff that they're showing with Thunder Rosa and I get she put out the little interview. You got to play it up. I understand, like it's a business. I get it, but I felt like it just doesn't look good in the sense of like. It makes some of those wrestlers look a little differently than I think you want them to look, because we know how fandom is very interesting. Wrestling fandom is very interesting. I think All Access will definitely play upon it because I saw so many people defending Thunder Rosa. I saw somebody call Britt Baker racist. I saw people saying stuff about Sammy Guevara and Ty Mello. I was just like, this is not going to, if you want to calm down the craziness of fan base, this is probably not the show to do it. This is not the show. But I do think the Adam Cole story is absolutely something we need to see to really appreciate, especially because he's about to be. We'll get to that when we talk about Dynamite, but like Adam Cole's about to be that next like face that they sorely needed another baby face to come in, and I feel like he's at that point, and I feel like the show will be great in putting him in that position, because who doesn't love a story of somebody coming back from a terrible injury and becoming like this huge mega. I mean, he's already a star, but it's just like becoming a face, because we've only seen him as a heel in AEW so far. So it's a beautiful transition.
The thing I'm excited to see him do is just, and hopefully, because unless they start pairing him with Britt Baker, but we've never seen Adam Cole truly on his own.
Nope.
For a guy who was with the Kingdom, he's a Bullet Club, he's with Undisputed Era, he's been with the Elite.
Yep.
Even when he was on his own briefly in NXT, he was feuding with Kyle O'Reilly.
Yep.
And so like he's never truly gotten to be on his own.
Yep.
And I'm interested to see what Adam Cole does truly by himself, unless, like I said, they pair him with Britt Baker, which is entirely possible. But I mean, Britt's got an angle going herself. Maybe she doesn't need that.
They should keep them separate.
Guy says, echoing Sean's words, thank you for doing the show tonight. I live in the West Coast and couldn't wait to hear your take on tonight's show. Thank you, Gotham Guy. I really appreciate your super chat. And we got another one here from Tenruza. Says, Supercard of Honor is fire. ROH TK battling AEW TK with the big guns. Great show, and thanks for doing the show now. Now TK do a meeting and buy WWE. Not happening.
Please don't.
We're talking about entirely different beast.
Yeah. No, I don't want any more monopolies in wrestling, man. I think this is like we're at a peak right now. I don't know if people realize it, but we're really at a peak for wrestling. Like WWE has stepped their game up a little bit over the last, 7-8 months, I guess. How long has it been? Like 8 months, something like that, since Vince got out of there. Or
8 months, yeah.
Or got out of there, as we say. But no, and I think AEW is hitting a stride again. I mean, like I said, we got to get into the show, but AEW is hitting a stride again. I think even Impact has some great stuff going on, especially this weekend. And I mean, Ring of Honor, I mean, even, it's an extension of AEW a little bit now, but that's his own beast. And let me tell you, man, that is my favorite wrestling. What they're doing on Honor Club and with this Supercard of Honor. And I mean, I have a personal stake, obviously, in Supercard of Honor a little bit.
I'm excited. I mean, for the people who don't know, you have a song.
Yes.
That is going, that a lot of fans have heard. In terms of, because AEW's posted it, but you did Commander's theme. Yeah,
I did the first verse of Commander's theme with Rated R, and of course, Mikey did the beat, and it came about in like 24 hours. It's like that quick, and I'm just excited, really just excited for the match. Outside of hearing the theme on pay-per-view, I'm more excited for that match, because that is like, dude, like that's. I grew up watching WCW, so that was my first introduction into Lucha, and then I started reading like Pro Wrestling Illustrated, Inside Wrestling magazines like that, and I started to learn more about it, and like the AAAs and all that stuff. So like I was a wrestling nerd coming up. I was the only dude in my hood that was a wrestling nerd, and so like everybody would be I'd be talking basketball, but I had the magazines tucked in, man, and so like. Lucha, that's my personal favorite style of wrestling. It's always been like that. It's just because it's so exciting, and like I could show my daughter, and my daughter be like, "Oh, they're flipping!" Like, "Oh snap!" Like that's she gets excited for that. Like she might not get excited for John Moxley bleeding, but she'll get excited for Commander walking across the rope and flipping. So I'm really excited for Supercard.
No, that match I think the whole card is going to be really, really
it's an amazing card. I'm not gonna lie, man. Tony Khan, he outdoing himself with these Ring of Honor cards, man. Like,
I know there's almost no reason to go this hard for WrestleMania weekend, but I think
it's Impact, right? It's like an Impact where you gotta leave your stamp on the weekend.
Yeah,
because I don't think, and I think WrestleMania is not a bad card. I don't think there's any way in ring wise that WrestleMania outdoes it. Personally, I can't see it happening. I can't. If it does happen, the WWE put they put their foot. They must have put their foot into the event, but it doesn't on paper.
Either way, I'm excited for all the wrestling this week.
No, for sure.
I think, hell, look, speaking of Denise Salcedo, I have a show with her this Sunday. She and I will still be doing After the Week, which is going to be really weird because it's going to be on Sunday morning. So it'll be after WrestleMania Night 1, but before WrestleMania
Night 2. Yeah.
But the fun thing about that show is that talking about top 3 things of the week, man, I am going to have a hard time picking top 3 things this week.
Man.
But we'll see. Jose Flores says, my wife was on her phone during Dynamite. All Access came on and she put her phone down. I mean, look, I said, I think All Access is on the wrong network. I think that with Warner Brothers Discovery owning HGTV, owning Discovery, owning TLC, I feel like All Access, they should at least put like a second run of the show on one of their other networks in the same way where like BattleBots did their first run Discovery and then it would run on TBS. I think working the networks together, I think they should probably put it in front of the reality TV audience and see what they can get out of it.
I think TLC is like the big reality TV network, right? Yeah, so yeah. I agree with you. I do agree with you, kind of, because that's what they did with, I mean, I hate to say it, but like Total Divas was on E, right? I think it was on E.
Yeah, it was on E.
And so you have to tap into it.
It sounds weird, by the way, because I feel like I'm talking about ecstasy, but no, we're talking about the show on E.
Yeah, no, but I agree. I think it fits perfectly after Dynamite, obviously, but if you could get that TLC crowd, which is an entirely different crowd, I believe, than the people that are watching Dynamite, and people are lazy too. It's been real. People are lazy. Like if you got TLC on, and I don't know exactly what goes on. I don't think I know it was on TNC. It was like Honey Boo Boo. That's the only thing I remember was on TLC. But like if you have something on TLC that you're watching and you just automatically flip and see Britt Baker arguing in the back with Saraya or Thunder Rosa, you might not want to change the channel. But if you don't watch Dynamite and you turn to TBS and you see that, you might stay on the channel. So there's definitely advantages. I think All Access is going to be really successful. It's just for me as a fan. This is not my cup of tea. I don't like watching some of the stuff that I saw, but for me saying that, I did not turn it off until it was over. So there's something there.
Well, I've got it recorded. I'll give it a watch. But the thing I did get to watch live on a plane was Dynamite. As soon as it kicked off, as a matter of fact, we were stuck on the tarmac. Our plane didn't take off. Wow. It took off late. And so they're like, yeah, we're not taking off till 13 minutes past the hour. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm throwing on Dynamite. And then the plane had Wi-Fi. So I'm like, I'm going to just watch it in the air. And so show started out with Jungle Boy Jack Perry going one-on-one with the Firm's Matt Hardy.
I missed the first 5 minutes of this match, mostly because I was rushing to get back to the TV, and I was mad because I almost assumed they were going to start with Omega and Jeff. I thought, and then I looked at Twitter and I saw people like, they're starting with this, and I was like, what are they talking about? I got to the TV, I was like, and my first thought was probably MJF comes out after this match, so it probably made more sense to start with it. But what I did see, it wasn't a bad match. From what I did see, it wasn't a bad match. I mean, obviously, Jungle Boy he's in prime position right now. With this, I guess it's still like the 4 Pillars story that they're doing.
Yeah,
they didn't have any Darby
because they cut to Sammy Guevara watching in the back. They cut to Darby Allin watching in the back.
Yeah, they didn't have Darby come
really
out
into Matt Hardy. I will say that there was a mixed reaction. I will say that it was like half Jungle Boy, half Hardy.
Matt Hardy's a legend, for all intents and purposes, he's a legend. So I mean, and I think they were in St. Louis, right?
Yes, St. Louis.
So St. Louis crowd was pretty hot tonight. They were pretty hot tonight. So I absolutely think it was a great crowd. I thought the crowd was good in the match, and I feel like maybe it also has to do with I don't think some people are completely sold on Jungle Boy, especially when we're talking about this. I feel like, and I could be wrong, but I just go off of what I see and hear from people. And some people are sold on Jungle Boy. I think Jungle Boy is great in ring. He's a great in ring talent, absolutely. His promos sometimes lose me, but I think he did a great job today, just keeping up with Max, and that's not easy. It's really not easy.
No, it's not easy. And I think this was probably his best performance at it, to be honest. I thought that I worried about him, honestly. So, talking about Jungle Boy got a fairly decisive victory over Matt Hardy, probably the type of victory he needed over somebody who is at that stature.
Yeah.
So Jack Perry's in the ring. He's interrupted by MJF. MJF makes his way down, and I kind of like this. I like that they're playing up the feuds all individually, because I think if this is going to get stretched to Double or Nothing, you can take your time with stuff like this. And like starting with Jungle Boy, kind of stealing Ace Shock's comment in the chat. Ace Shock here notes that he says, I think Jungle Boy will be MJF's heel foil next week, which is effective, right? Because MJF is in his hometown of Long Island. And so if you want to have MJF against the heel in this scenario, no better person to position him against next week than Sammy Guevara, who will be able to absorb the heat and allow MJF to get cheered. I think that's actually a really great idea.
Yeah, no, I agree.
In this case, so MJF talks about the last match that they had, and that after the match was over, he went, shook Jungle Boy's hand, and gave him a piece of advice. Jungle Boy recited what that advice was. They brought up Jungle Boy's history with his friends and the friends that he had stuck by, and where did they all turn out? I did not like, look, Max, I know what you're doing here, but using Jim Cornette isms on Dynamite, I think one does too much to pop his audience, which I get, that's what you're trying to do, right? Because you're trying to make his audience feel like you're their guy. And so in that sense, you're healing AEW's fan base by siding with those guys. But he used all three nicknames that Jungle Boy, or he used the two nicknames. He used the Dino Douche, and he used the what was the other one? He called him Marco Stunted Growth, which are both Jim Cornette-isms.
Yeah.
Which the Marco Stunted Growth isn't clever, because the reason he calls himself Marco Stunt, the stunt is a reference to the fact that he's short. He knows that. You're not making fun of him when you say that.
Yeah, I've never really, and this is, I guess it goes into what you're saying. I've never really understood the Cornette fascination. Like, honestly,
look, I grew up with the guy, and he was.
Me too, man.
People like him. To me, he was the number one reason for me to see what was on the other channel. Like, a dead serious. I wish I was just saying that to be like mean, but like as a kid, when he came on screen, I checked Nitro. When I would watch, when he would come on Raw,
I agree.
Hated his character so much, but it wasn't like oh, I hate you, you're such a great heel kind of thing. It was all right, let me see what's going on WCW.
I'm gonna be real, man. Everything about Jim Cornette back in the day, and I used to try to follow Smoky Mountain because the gangsters were there, and I mean, man, like that's just it's. So I would try to follow it. Obviously, it's very hard. I mean, I grew up in West Baltimore. We ain't really, as is possible, but I would read the magazines and I would follow it. And then, like, when he would come on, WWF television, I just was never interested. I remember he was with Vader at one point. When he was with Vader at one point, that was the only time I tolerated him. But otherwise, but even then, I kind of felt like, I mean, I watched Vader with Harley Race before, and I felt Vader with Harley Race was way more effective than putting him with Cornette, because Cornette just didn't. He's never done it for me. And then as years have passed, and he's kind of held on to his relevancy in some way, shape, or form, it's like he's like a shock jock, really.
Yeah.
That's and you,
like I said, that's part of the reason why I don't like that MJF is using. I get what he's doing. I get what he's doing, and I get why it's effective. But this is not for me. But I get it. I get it. It's so Jungle Boy though here. I thought was effective. And you
For
could
sure.
hear him start to lose the crowd at first. You could hear them starting to what him. And he worked his way around the what chants and back into getting them in a frenzy behind attacking MJF. Because as soon as I started hearing those what chants, I thought, oh no, like this is make or break for a babyface. You can either work your way out of them. He didn't Charlotte them. I can't imagine Jungle Boy going, are you people wetting me? This is important to me. And then like falling apart.
Nah,
And he
he's
didn't
not
do
gonna
that.
Nah.
But I was worried about him as those what chants hit. And I thought he fought his way out of them. He changed his cadence a bit. He stopped taking pauses to allow them to what. And then he used pointed enough words to throw them at MJF. And MJF then comes back with the, well, Anna Jay tells me you have a little pee-pee. And then that was it. And they brawled.
Yeah, it's funny because like I was kind of waiting for the Anna Jay thing to come out like at some point because like it's Max, so you know at some point that's coming out. And when it came out, I just laughed. I like because it's the cheapest shot you could take. It's the lowest blow you could go at. And I mean, if there's anything that gets somebody mad, tell somebody they got a little, you know. I feel that's fighting words, you know. I feel like that's fighting words. So
yeah.
I like the segment though. I like the way they're positioning Jungle Boy. I am curious as to, you know, I think there's only been like a couple times maybe that the AEW World Championship has not headlined a pay-per-view. So I'm curious if they actually close with that match at Double or Nothing, if that's the plan, of course, to do it.
You know what's interesting? The AEW title has only closed out one Double or Nothing. And that was Punk and Hangman.
Wait, it didn't close out 2021?
Stadium Stampede did.
No, that was 2020.
And 2020, the second one.
Hold on. Wait, 2021. Was that
Pinnacle in Inner Circle.
Okay. You're right. Okay. I had to think about it.
And that one closed out the show. So the only time the AEW title has, and then they didn't have a title at the first Double or Nothing. So
yeah. That's a good point, man. I had to think about you. Yeah, I had to think about that. That's good. That's interesting.
If they wanted to, they don't have to close it out with the title this time around.
Anarchy in the arena. I would, you know, if they want to, you know, I mean, I see two teams that are two of the most over teams that they have. Some of the most over and most popular guys. Great story going on. Yeah, I would probably close with that, which also I think makes sense then that they're going with it. Not saying there's anything wrong with them if they decided to close with, you know, the four pillars. I just feel like the biggest story that they have going right now is no doubt the
BCC is the
it is because that is
so there's
fire.
Stuff to talk about there because we had an advertised match, and actually I'm seeing some stuff here. First off, we had an apology from Don Callis, with the Kenny Omega stuff, and he said he was going to go find Hangman Adam Page and go apologize.
Yeah.
So, what was the stuff with Matt Menard and the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn? I didn't see any of this because I somehow missed this.
Okay, so I missed this. I was in the bathroom. Okay, so I missed that. I missed that. And
tell me what happened. I'm reading the results and I'm seeing that this happened, but when I think it was just like buffering while I was in the air because airline Wi-Fi. And then by the time I actually was able to get the show feedback, it was in the middle of Dalton Castle's entrance.
Yeah, that's and I came back. I heard because I could hear on the TV the music or the boys. And so I heard that and I was like, oh, damn, I must have missed something. And so when I ran back into the room and I saw it, I was like, maybe I didn't miss anything substantial. And then I saw people on Twitter like Matt Menard and talk about stuff like that. So I didn't actually get to see that. And
the chat saying it was gold, saying 2.0 wined and dined the Acclaimed. They went to an amusement park. All right, I got to see this. I haven't seen any of this.
I need to see that. I need to see. I saw people talking about it. And for some reason, I couldn't find like a video of it while I was like scrolling on like Twitter. So I couldn't find a video of it. And I guess I could go to the AEW account and probably find something on it. But yeah, I'm sure it was gold though. I think 2.0 they are like 2.0 is amazing, man. I think Menard he's got it. I think he just got it. Like everything he does is just crisp in terms of like his delivery, even the stupid stuff, like his nipples hard. Also, like all it's just stupid, but it's just like you can't help but laugh at it because it's just really just I laugh at dumb shit all the time. So I find Matt Menard to just be super entertaining. He's the most entertaining part of the Jericho Appreciation Society to me. But that's a whole outside of Garcia. But yeah.
Let's see. I got a question here asking, do you know what's going on with Swerve? Yes.
I'm sure. I was gonna say, I know if anybody will. If anybody will.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a promo last week on Rampage.
I said this too. I was asking this. I said this too earlier. I was like, yo, like, where's Swerve at? Like, and I know he had a promo, but it's like, where my man at? Like, where he at? Like,
so he had a promo on Rampage, and he talked about how
the affiliates.
You know, he had the Tech 9 promo, and then he mentioned how he's got the Mogul affiliates, for all intents and purposes, are gone. They're hurt. Fightful, of course, reported last week that both guys actually did get injured, Trench and Parker Boudreaux. Parker, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe he did get hurt in that match that everybody kind of shit on, and rightfully, the one from Rampage. And so Swerve did hint that they'd be replaced. That
cut them off.
Some new ones coming in.
You gotta watch what you say.
What's up?
I was like, you gotta watch what you say on this, because I'm sure you know. Yeah, you gotta watch what you say on this.
I know who it is, but it's let that play out. You'll see, and it'll make sense. And
I kind of want to know ahead of time, but it's all right. I want to know ahead of time. But I mean, I will say this. I'm tough on most wrestlers in general when it comes to gimmicks and stuff. I did not like the Mogul affiliates because I thought when Swerve had Rick Ross there and he was just kind of, and when Swerve when he first turned, heel, I was like, yo, this is it for him. Like, he out of here. Like, this is it. And then he put Parker and Trench, and I was like, it's just like, I got what they were going for, but I just don't think they were the right two people for him. Because I think Swerve that's a world champion, and I feel like
I think people will like who the replacement is, and that's all I'll say.
Okay.
As far as that, maybe they won't. I don't know. I'm curious what the reaction ends up being to it.
All right, man. You got to tell me off the record, because this is. I need to know something now. I really want to know this off the record, because this is.
If I type it in here, do not say any word.
I got you. Wait, I don't even know how this works on here. But okay.
All right, there's a little private chat function.
Oh, I see. I got you. Oh, okay. All right. There we go. There we go. All right.
So so now you know.
Yeah.
What else happened on the show?
Oh man, we're just talking about when Dalton Castle and the boys were coming out. They got their ass whooped. I mean, but you expect that, I think when you saw the graphic of Dalton Castle and the boys against the Blackpool Combat Club, I think we all knew, like, oh, okay, we're about to see a terrible squash. But there was a surprise today that I don't think any of us expected later on in the show with the Blackpool Combat Club.
Like, I knew it was coming eventually, but I was not expecting it tonight.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe like, a week or two away. I was thinking it was a week or two away because I felt like it was a little too soon. Like, especially the promo. Look, I'm gonna just say one of my favorite promos this entire year was the promo after Danielson lost to MJF. That I felt that promo, and so it felt kind of like, damn, babyface Bryan Danielson is so damn good at what he does. But then heel Bryan Danielson is like so good at what he does. I mean, I think Danielson is like one of the greatest ever do it. But I think, and I guess I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but it caught me off guard a little bit. Like I actually jumped up, like, oh shit, like when I heard the music. So that was a good moment for me to see Danielson tonight. But as far as the squash goes with Dalton Castle and the boys, it's a squash, you know. I mean, it's a squash match. It's not really much to really talk about. It just reasserts the dominance.
Yeah,
of,
it was all very quick. Like I thought I missed something. I thought like, oh, did my feed skip? Like, did it just jump ahead? What happened? And then I like backed up and I'm like, nope, this was the match.
Yeah, no, and like I said, I love what they're doing with the Blackpool Combat Club because a heel like they were always kind of heel anyway, in their actions and how they move. They just didn't do like wrestling the chicken shit heel move where you beat down somebody and then somebody comes out and you run away. Like they weren't like that, but they had heel tendencies, like very tweener heelish tendencies. So now that they fully leaned into it, I love it. And Wheeler Yuta, man, I have watched that dude for a long time, actually. And I love seeing him in that role because I think that role is pushing him even more. And I would like to see Kenny Omega versus Wheeler Yuta in a one-on-one match.
I want to see every match here now. Like, are you kidding me?
No,
dude. Start lining them up. I want to see Kenny versus Moxley again.
Yes.
I want to see Kenny versus Bryan again.
Yes.
I will fly to wherever Kenny versus Bryan is taking place. I want to see Kenny versus Wheeler Yuta. I want to see Kenny versus Claudio. Give me all of it.
Absolutely. And I know the Bucks. It's kind of a touchy situation right now because they got injuries. I believe both of them have actual legit injuries. I think.
Matt does. I'm surprised people didn't notice, but I guess kind of peeling back the curtain a little bit.
Yeah,
Matt was not at Dynamite last week.
This
ambulance segment, people didn't. I'm surprised not enough people picked up on the fact that you never saw him in an ambulance. You saw
that is true
put in the ambulance, but Matt's was already closed.
That is true.
Brandon Cutler peek his head out.
That is true. I guess when you're in the moment, you kind of sometimes you miss those things, but it's crazy. I think
he is legit hurt. He has
partially torn. Which I mean, who knows how long that's going to be to fully heal? Because I know they said he's not doing surgery because surgery would take at least 6-7 months, I think, for something like that. So, but if I think of Danielson and Moxley versus the Bucks as a tag match, I wanted to see that when they first did when they first brought them together when Regal was there. I was like, man, I don't care about none of these stories. And I know that's a thing, right? On with AEW, people talk about like, what's the story of this match? I don't give a shit. You put these wrestlers in a match and you tell me this happening, I'm watching it regardless. I do not care. There has to be because I care about wrestling. So I think this thing, I believe we're gonna get a couple good singles matches leading up to whatever they do at Double or Nothing. So
for certain. And
so I
think they know that these are the matches we want to see. Speaking of which, let's talk about some of the stuff surrounding that. So we had Don Callis. He was backstage and he approaches Hangman. He gets jumped by the Blackpool Combat Club. So first Hangman gets jumped and Don Callis just kind of watches it happen. And then he offers to shake his hand and the Blackpool Combat Club jumps him. Story out of PW Insider is that Don Callis got busted open the hard way there. That was not supposed to happen.
Yeah, it was weird because I thought it was supposed to happen because there was that moment where like they're showing Don like on the ground, and then they look up at Mox, but Mox I think he has like his foot on him, and so when it happens, me wrestling brain, I'm like, oh, he's blading. It's like I was thinking, he's blading, okay, and then when he gets up, I was like, look a little too much, and so I was like, all right, I was like, damn, Don, you did a good job. Like that's my mind. Like you did a good job. And then I read the report and I'm like, whoa. Which I mean, he fell the way he fell. I mean, he was right there by like equipment, so
Yeah.
that is very, very likely. But I mean,
Yep, it's unfortunate. I hope he's okay because, like, hey, people get bloodied in
yeah, no,
backstage brawls, so it looked good.
yeah,
But
no,
we got a match that we have been waiting for quite some time.
yes, yes.
Jeff Cobb versus Kenny Omega. But not just any Kenny Omega. Oh, no. Kenny Omega. And I hope this remains the case. I didn't even consider until the music hit. But I forgot this man was defending the IWGP United States Championship, which I didn't think was going to be as big of a deal as it turned out to be. But he came out to Devil's Sky.
Yep.
He had a Tron playing behind him of New Japan clips. I didn't even consider that when the title is on the line, this man is in New Japan mode.
Yep.
That was dope. I was not like the entrance, all of it.
Very, very much.
I thought it was very, very cool. Him being in his New Japan mode. And
I was waiting for Battle Cry. Like, I was waiting for it. And then I was like, yo, they actually are like, let's go. Like, that's dope, man.
I love Battle Cry as a theme. It's probably one of my favorite themes.
For sure.
But I think if Kenny is going to be doing New Japan stuff, like anything New Japan related, he's defending a New Japan title. He's defending the IWGP United States title. This is great. I really like this.
I love the idea of alternating from, when he's out with the Bucks, they do Carry On, Wayward Son. When he's in doing AEW mode, he's doing, Battle Cry. And he's in, like, I like that. Like, that's dope because it's like different feels for everything, that's perfect for Kenny. I think that's perfect.
Yeah.
Like, he deserves to have all those, because I still think, and I will say this, there's no wrestler on the planet, to me, that's better than Kenny Omega.
I agree too.
And he's been my favorite, especially from an in-ring perspective. I have never seen. He's the reason why I got back into watching wrestling, because I took a little hiatus during that what do you call it? That post Danielson Punk WWE run. I kind of took a break, and because it was like Punk and Danielson were my two favorites at that time, and I I was going to Ring of Honor shows, but in terms of like mainstream and like paying attention to everything, Omega was the reason why I started paying more attention to New Japan again, and I was just like, this dude is crazy. And I'd seen him like PWG, some Ring of Honor stuff, but when I really got into like the New Japan stuff that he was doing, I was just like, this dude is amazing. And to see his growth from those old PWG Ring of Honor days to now, it's amazing, dude. Like, he's a GOAT, I think.
Honestly, and I think one of the things I was not expecting since he's been back, and I noticed it a lot last week. I talked about this last week, but I'm noticing it a lot here too, is that I found myself going back and watching some old Kenny stuff, but not New Japan. I watched some old AEW Kenny stuff, like early AEW. And I didn't realize till just recently how much he's come along as a TV style wrestler, and how much he has definitely shifted his demeanor and style toward being a TV star. And I think that was something he probably didn't even consider when AEW had first started. And he talked about that on the Swerve City podcast. He talked about the fact that he's that was a thing he really took, learning from Chris Jericho, learning from the guys who had been on TV all those years, and that it was all new to him. But like, he's got it now, and he has it more than I think he ever has. I think he was already starting to develop it. He pretty much had developed it as a heel, but I think he never really got to showcase it as a babyface. But I think there's something about him now that feels more like a TV presence than he did before. And I didn't even notice it 4 years ago. I didn't care 4 years ago. I was like, he's Kenny Omega. He's putting on great matches. He's great. But I do notice it now that he has it, that maybe he didn't before.
The difference to me is that, so I was there live for the first full gear. with him and Mox, and I just remember, like, I thought everything he did that first year of AEW, I thought everything Kenny did in ring wise was great, but I felt like he didn't push himself as a like kind of what you're saying. Like, it just felt like he just went out there, put on great matches, and left. And but now it's like that heel run to me it's probably my favorite heel run really in AEW period, because the belt collector and just like, it seems like even with promos he's always, like, I guess, been a good promo, but I felt like it wasn't his strongest suit. And now I feel like when you see him cut a promo, it's almost like it's like not quite obviously what he does in the ring, but it's almost on par now to where he doesn't have a weakness. And I think that was something that, even catchphrases aside, like the Bullet Club run, I still felt like it was like a very big difference between what he did in the ring and what he did character and promo wise. It didn't connect completely with me. And now I feel like the last 2-3 years, I mean, obviously we missed almost a whole year, but those last, since 2020, late 2020-ish on, I think his promos have been top notch. I think he a naturally funny dude too.
He is.
And so, like, I like when he was a heel, I loved when he would just do this little stupid shit. And obviously BTE, you see more of the personality. And I think that's also helped a lot with it too, because it's almost like you're in this, camera's on you 24/7 when you're traveling, when you're around. And obviously he hasn't been on BTE like that much, recently. But I feel like it allowed him to kind of, let the personality shine even more, and it's kind of traveled over. So I agree with you 100%.
And the old saying that every good babyface is rooted in a good heel. And I think that he needed that run through 2021 to really figure out his TV presence and what he was going to be to get to where he is today. But this match here with Jeff Cobb,
great match.
I mean, really, it was about, Kenny had some injuries to work through. He was really selling the ribs. He was really selling the elbow. He was selling a lot, and it was all about Jeff Cobb kind of taking advantage of all of that. Kenny being able to, he was struggling to even hit a one-wing angel at multiple points in the match, and Jeff Cobb was basically working over Kenny. And this was a very work from behind type match for Kenny that I got a lot of enjoyment out of. I think this was the kind of match that I've wanted to see him in for a while. What did you think of it?
I enjoyed it because, I mean, it's Jeff Cobb, right? So this is a powerful guy. Kenny got beat up last week. I think he got beat up after his match. He's selling that too, and he's also, I like the vulnerability that they showcased with Kenny through this entire show. I thought was perfect because it made you believe in the match even more, because he was already mentally out of it because the Bucks aren't there. Then Don Callis gets taken out, and then I like how they're doing the Hangman thing. I kind of have a little, like, it's a little, like, it's like, I know what they're going for, and I know what it's building up to, but it's like he just kind of passively is just like, oh, they took out, Callis and Hangman. He's like, Don's hurt. He didn't give a shit about Hangman. So, like, I was like, okay, but just him, he's like, I got a match to worry about. He goes out there and he's he's in defense mode the entire match. I love that for him because he's a babyface now. So you need him to be that. I think seeing him in that, because I don't think we see Kenny in that type of really like that. His matches are pretty, I would say not 50-50, because I don't want to say 50-50, but it's very much like he's either when he was a heel, he was obviously the aggressor in most of his matches, and when he's a face, like when he was going against Mox or going against Pac and everybody else, like it was like even playing field. This didn't feel like an even playing field. It felt like Cobb had the advantage, and Kenny was, he was struggling to get through, but he finally does it. I was kind of hoping for like an even more exciting finish, even because I was like, he's not gonna hit it when he finally got him up. I was like, he's not gonna hit it. They're gonna do something, and mostly because I wanted the match to continue on a little bit longer. But no, I love the match. I think I think it shows how great Kenny is that in back-to-back weeks he's giving you two entirely different matches, but they are both amazing in their own right. So I love the match. I love the dynamic of the match, and I love watching Jeff Cobb work too. When he's in this type of bag, 'cause he has his moments where it's not what I like, but this was perfect for him.
I am curious what Kenny does next week, because I know he's not booked on Dynamite, but he's front and center on the poster for the live Rampage / Battle of the Belts they're doing next week. And so I feel like you can't advertise Kenny Omega specifically and not deliver on that. I wonder what Tony has in mind for that show.
Well, it's interesting because they did something different kind of recently, right? With this Long Island show that's coming up next week. They announced a couple matches ahead of time, which is it's not I think they've done it once or twice before, but it's not a regular thing. So so they haven't announced anything yet for the Rampage, which obviously I'm sure they'll announce something Friday. Was it Friday? I think it's on Friday, right? It's not getting preempted for college basketball this week.
It's live.
No. Okay, so it's live. So it's live. So he has a live one.
Rampage. They're doing it's Rampage Battle of the Belts live from, I want to say, Kingston, Rhode Island. So like the interesting thing about that Long Island show is that it's just a Dynamite.
Yeah.
So
that
goes off the air, it's over. Which is interesting because you could do one of two things there. I feel like it'll probably go off the air with the tag titles, and that's it. So, however that goes off, that's how they're sending those fans home.
Oof, that is that's a tough one there. I mean, I feel like the last time they ended the show with the tag titles, the crowd was befuddled, and I don't think you want to do that again. I don't feel like you want to do that again. If I'm Tony, I probably wouldn't. So I have an idea of how I think next week is gonna go. But I do think it's interesting if you do end it off. What do you do for Battle of the? It's weird because I feel like the tag team match you have Battle of the Belts. So I was surprised that it wasn't on Battle of the Belts, which is why I think I know how it's going to end. Because I just feel like if it was going to end a certain way, you probably would just put it on Battle of the Belts as opposed to like this is going to be a big deal. And so. I'm curious, like who, I guess, what's going to be on Battle of the Belts. I mean, we see Jamie Hayter's.
I have no idea what they're going to do.
Jamie Hayter's going against Rio, so we know that's not probably going to be on Battle of the, like that title's not going to be there. I would assume Jade and Taya.
Yeah,
maybe
if they can't push that off another, we're still like 2 months away from
Double or Nothing.
Double or Nothing.
Yeah. What else? Maybe TNT. Maybe Hobbs gets a.
I could see something with Hobbs.
Yeah, I mean, because Hobbs had back to back. Back to back joints with Lucha Brothers, man.
And they were great.
Yeah,
Although I want to see him win more cleanly. I feel like.
Yeah, I was gonna say I want to see him really
who he is. I think he doesn't need that much interference in his matches. At this stage, I think he should be winning a lot cleaner.
I'm not gonna say how I feel about this QTV thing. This ain't my bag.
What you want? This is Day After Dynamite.
Look, man. QT is cool. I think he has a great mind, but I could do without him with Hobbs because I feel like what makes Hobbs so special is that he's just powerhouse Hobbs. Like he's a bad dude. He goes out there. I mean, the dude is big and whatever, and he's just huge. And it's like, why do you need him? You don't need him. He could talk for himself. So it's not like QT is gonna be the voice for him. He doesn't need him. And like I said, he could win clean. I think a powerhouse heel should be winning these matches clean because it makes them even stronger.
At this stage. It's so early in the run. I think they need to do it.
Yeah, and I mean the Lucha Brothers had no problem. Obviously, they had no problem putting them over. So it's like, do it clean. It's not hurting Ray. I don't think it hurts Penta. I mean, because they're about to have. I mean, today's what's Thursday, so technically tomorrow, they're about to have probably another classic too. So look, man, I'm jealous of everybody because I was wanted to be in LA for this. I had planned it, like me and Cam had talked about, like all the stuff we were gonna do, and I know I saw you mention you had something with your daughter, I think, around this time too.
Yeah, I lucked out in that she's got 3 showings of her performance. One isn't happening tomorrow the way it was supposed to, or I guess today. And so therefore that allowed me to come out here for Wednesday, Thursday, and then I will be leaving Friday. So I don't even get to see Supercard of Honor.
Damn, okay.
But
Yeah,
I'll be out here for just a few networking things.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm here for.
I was jealous, man. I didn't send Cam about 30, 40 texts. Like fuck you. Like, because like I said, we had talked for like a year, like last year. We just been talking about it. Like, all right, bro, like, brunch and all stuff like that. And then, like my daughter had her recital and it got pushed back to April 12th. So I was like, oh, okay. I probably could have went to LA. But flights a little, from whether I'm leaving from Baltimore or I'm leaving from Atlanta, it don't really matter. Them flights ain't cheap. And I saw the tickets, how the tickets look for Supercard of Honor, and I was like, it's not even worth, I was like, it's not even worth even. I was like, fine. But I really am looking forward to that card. Like even more so than I think anything else. I'm looking forward to that card. And I just want to say really quick, this has nothing to do with AEW. Well, technically it does because they taped the Ring of Honor episode. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but I think Athena is at the top of her game right now, and it is like she is killing it. And I mean, like, I've always knew how good she was. Like, I've seen her for years, even on like on the independent scene. But I feel like for a national, because I don't think the Ember Moon character truly got the push it deserved. I think her getting kind of free range to do this, and like obviously, her gimmick for a while was just beating up white girls, on AEW Dark, which, hey, I don't have no problem with that. But it's like she's found something, and I saw something, and I don't know if it's out yet, so I'm not gonna say it, but like about where her match is at Supercard of Honor. I didn't see anything posted about it, but maybe I'm wrong. But like Twitter's messed me up, man, because before we had For You and following tabs, I could see everything. Now I miss tons of stuff. And so but I think Athena is killing it, man. I think she is she's probably my favorite lady right now, and
She's
that
doing
whole
really good. I think this is the run that I've wanted to see for her.
She deserves it. But skipping back to AEW outside of Ring of Honor, no, we were talking about Omega, Jeff Cobb, which the aftermath after Omega won. Yes, sir.
Right. So the aftermath took place.
Yes.
So Kenny wins. He does hit a one-winged angel. It's a very impressive looking one-winged angel on Jeff Cobb. 1, 2, 3. He is then again jumped by the Blackpool Combat Club. And a music plays that I wasn't expecting this soon. But Bryan Danielson's music plays.
Yep. And
he makes his way down to the ring. And he talks off Blackpool Combat Club. I think everybody expected him to eventually side with the Blackpool Combat Club. I think we all saw this coming because it's the only way we get to the places that this is getting. You could even see the crowd chanting no the second Bryan got in the ring.
Yeah.
They're like, no, we know what you're about to do.
Yeah.
Don't do it. And for a second, they bought it. He shakes Kenny's hand. He helps Kenny to his feet. And then Kenny goes to knock the Blackpool Combat Club members off the turnbuckles and turns around into a Busaiku knee. Bryan has realigned with the group he helped found, the Blackpool Combat Club. All 4 members are together. They are a strong unit. This is the first time it's really felt like they've been a unit because
Yes.
like it's always felt fractured. It's always felt like maybe we got Bryan and Moxley, or we've got Moxley and Claudio, or we've got Claudio and Yuta, but it's never really felt like the 4 of them together. And this was the first time that it felt like these guys were a group.
Yep. And it's interesting you mentioned that too. Like I was thinking about that. Like they even had the Yuta and Bryan, tension for a while before there too. And we never, and that never really got like solved. I feel like it just kind of, because he went into the MJF story and it kind of went away. And then
what's interesting though is you mentioned Bryan's promo and his whole maybe it's time for me to go home.
Go home. Yep.
But who was home? It turns out the Blackpool Combat Club is Bryan's home.
Yeah. It's so interesting how they weave that together. I was just like, it's funny because I think the crowd, when his music hit, like you even hear like a slight hush over the crowd until he actually comes out.
Right.
And so I think people are kind of like, no, like almost like it was too soon. They're like, no, he was just here fighting Max like 3 weeks ago. Like, no. And when he comes out, it's like, you like, okay, we see where this is going. And I guess it makes Kenny even more so of the sympathetic babyface because he has no one. There's nobody there. And then I don't know if a couple people mentioned this. I caught it too, where like Danielson's beating down Kenny, and I think he says something like, "You're what's wrong with wrestling." I feel is what he said. I couldn't fully hear it, and I was like, "That's an interesting. That's so interesting."
I mean, hey, whatever is about to get me to Kenny and Bryan too. Only the roles flip. Like everything is roles flip now because even seeing Kenny and Moxley 4.
Yep.
Roles flipped. We have a different dynamic here. Everything old is new again here, and I am excited for it. We had a couple of super chats here. Orion Ben 666 says, "Punks jump up to get beat down or just be seen BCC." Not sure what you're saying there, Orion Ben 666. Meet Normus says, "Taz slipped and called Cobb Hobbs, and now I need to see that match."
That'd be a good match.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see that.
But yeah, Bryan's back in the fold. The Blackpool Combat Club has their 4, but the Elite does not have theirs.
So here's the thing I think is interesting, right? So, obviously I think you got Danielson, Claudio, Yuta, Mox, and I think obviously it's leading to Hangman, Kenny, and the Bucks. But is there a chance that, like I'm thinking Anarchy in the Arena could possibly be a thing? And if I remember correctly, it was 5-on-5, right? When it was it 5-on-5?
Yeah, it was 5-on-5.
So is there a path where there's a possible 5th for each side?
I would like to see that. I don't know who it is if they do it.
I don't. Now, in terms of, I could think of like 2 people that could be that 5th person on the Elite side. The BCC, I could think of 1 or 2 maybe. But I'm interested. I am very interested to see what happens Friday. That's all I'll say. I'm very interested to see what happens Friday with Ring of Honor, because there's a lot of hints. There's a lot of people in LA. There's a lot of things happening. Oh, yeah. So there is something definitely going down. So, but I think it's going to be amazing. I think this feud is going to be. People throw around generational, all-timer now. That's the words that people. I think this could be one of those. I think the story that they did with Hangman and Kenny and all of that, the way it weaved together, I thought that was like excellent story. And this feels like I don't feel like Double or Nothing would be the end of it, but I could be wrong. But I feel like when you got It's like
because I think they're going to take this to both Anarchy in the Arena and Blood and Guts again.
I agree.
I think we got to see both, and I think knowing who's in both, this stands the chance at being the best ever.
Absolutely, it has to be.
It has to be, and it comes full circle, right? Because like the first, because I consider Anarchy in the Arena to really be in line with Stadium Stampede, right? Because it's literally the same match, just we don't have an empty stadium. And so when I consider those matches in succession, you think about how the first Stadium Stampede featured the Elite in the Inner Circle. Second one featured Inner Circle and the Pinnacle. Third was Jericho Appreciation Society and Blackpool Combat Club, which Jericho Appreciation Society, Inner Circle, like basically in succession.
Same, yeah.
And so when I think about how now it's time to kind of take the two main groups from each of those matches and go with now, or let the Elite now have it, because you got to let Jericho and his group run with those matches ever since. But the Elite, who won the first one, never got to compete in the second one. Yep. And I like that the idea of the Elite now get a chance to run with the match against the guys from last year.
So it's funny you mentioned Blood and Guts, right? Because I do feel like there's a chance for the BCC versus the Elite to turn to Blood and Guts. But on the flip side of that, which I guess would be the next match that took place at Dynamite, I think this is the next match. I feel like there's a thought amongst a lot of people that this Outcast story.
I think they'll do both. I think they have a path to both. I think that what I said about it was that you do the men's on Dynamite, the women's on Rampage, and essentially you just leave the cage down and let the women have the entire episode of Rampage.
That would be dope.
Give them the whole thing and really focus it on.
So here's the interesting part about this, though. We see Rio, we see Rhea, we see Willow, we see Sky Blue. There's Britt, there's Davey Hayter. There's only 3 Outcasts. So if you're gonna get to Blood and Guts, I would assume you need a couple more Outcasts. The question is who? Because right now we're just okay. I just want to point this out real quick, and I love all the women involved in this storyline. Most of the women involved in the storyline, but I just feel like something has to change in this story a little bit, because this whole thing of like the 3 of them beating down one of the originals and somebody coming to make the save. Eventually the Outcasts are going to get tired of running all the time and have to get enough, because I think they took out Rio and Sky Blue, and then Hayter runs out. But once again, which I thought was interesting, Hayter ran out, but Britt didn't run out. I thought that was interesting because Britt was there. That was kind of confusing, because I was thinking she would have came out too. But so I guess I'm just wondering with this story, who fills out the Outcast? Because there has to be.
There has to be another one. I don't know.
There's a lot of possibilities, I guess. I mean,
I don't know what Trinity's up to, but I think that this would be a good way to introduce her if you wanted to.
I think that's the perfect way to introduce her. I do feel like since she confirmed basically on Instagram that she's no longer with WWE, at least that's what the comment said. I didn't see the comment, but I saw people talking about it.
I mean, she said she's done, and she's taking independent bookings. Like
really? Okay.
I mean, so the booking she took for WrestleCon was not through WWE. They wouldn't have done that. But her doing a WrestleCon signing, she is doing that through just independently. Okay. It wasn't done through WWE.
Well, I mean, if you're gonna go anywhere and it's not WWE and you still want to wrestle, I mean, I feel like
she trademarked the name for wrestling purposes. That the trademark Trinity Star specifically does say for wrestling purposes.
But of course, the elephant in the room there is if you bring in Trinity. I mean, like, and it's funny you did your percentage with this particular person.
I'm of the belief now based on Tony's Revolution comments, thank you, Phil Lindsay, for the question when he asked it.
Shout out Phil.
I'm
Yeah.
of the belief now that he was at least at one point under the impression that she was coming in.
I agree with you on that.
I think my percentages were probably as accurate with myself as they were with him as things transpired. Because notice I lowered it as we got closer to the event.
You did. I remember.
But
you
at
said
the time, when I
99%
felt like it
a week
seemed
prior.
really confident that it was, I based that on his answers when I interviewed him.
I remember that interview because I watched it and I remember thinking to myself, I said, "Oh, I'm in my mind, we about to eat good now this year. Like we about to get some fire." And then obviously when she showed up at Wrestle Kingdom, it was kind of like, "Oh, she has to be coming if that's the case." And I think there's a perfect opportunity to bring her in, obviously for Forbidden Door if that is what they so choose. I don't know if that's the plan, but I feel like there is something there. If Trinity comes in, I kind of feel like everybody, the anticipation is going to go back up because it's like, oh, if Trinity's coming, she has to be somewhere. I just don't think, and I've said this on Twitter, I don't think she wants to sign anything long term at the time. She's said it almost like in the she did an interview with Leva, I think, and she just said she's going where the bag is. So I think that's where she is, and she likes being free or whatever. So, but I feel like the Outcast story, it's like every time I see people talk about it, and they're like blood and guts, blood and guts, blood and guts. It's like, do you bring Athena in if you can't get Mercedes, and then put Trinity and Athena as the last two? Or some people have said Thunder Rosa's gonna come back and be, which I think that's a weird way to do that, but I mean, there's something there. I don't know what is gonna happen, but I find this story, it needs a slight jolt of something in it because the girl, I thought Ruby and Willow was pretty good match, pretty solid. I think Willow is amazing, and I've said this countless times. I'm a big fan of Willow. I've been a fan of her for a while, and I think Ruby is stepping perfectly into her role as a heel. I just think there has to be something new to it because I feel like we all kind of saw the Ruby turn. Maybe I was the only one because some people act like they were shocked. I feel like it was logically the next step, like the next step in the story. But I don't know, man.
By the way, one of the little small touches here was Ruby's reluctance with Willow. Like she went out there, she wrestled Willow, but she wasn't willing to go as far with her as the others were.
Yeah.
Like she even hesitated when they handed her the spray can. Like, I mean, I'm doing the thing with you guys, but Willow is still like my girl.
Yeah. But I know somebody pointed out that when they were teaming together, that like when Ruby would come out or something like that, she would look at Willow and kind of shake her head because Willow was like super happy and like, you know, and they were like that was kind of leading into, but you know, I mean, we're wrestling fans. We always kind of look for those little nuances to kind of, but I like I said, I saw the Ruby turn coming and I thought that it was done pretty well. I thought that they did it pretty well, but I feel like for this story, it's been dragging kind of on, you know, since really the beginning of the year, a little bit before that, really. When Saraya first came into the entire, when she first came in, I feel like it's kind of been building. So I feel like it's like one of those things where it's like Tony's turn, Ruby's turn, something else has to happen to take it to the next level. But I feel like we're getting to that. We're getting to that like that boiling point. We're in almost in April. So if you're doing blood and guts, we got what, 2 months? Like 2 months or so.
It depends on where they decide to do it because there's plenty of opportunities too. Good. 2 more things to discuss. So before that match took place, we forgot about Orange Cassidy versus Big Butch.
You're right. Totally forgot.
And the Butcher basically spent the whole match kind of slaughtering Orange Cassidy.
Yeah.
And everything Orange Cassidy tried, Butcher had something for him. And really, it was until the best friends kind of came out and
Yeah.
helped even the playing field here. That was at the point where there wasn't a whole lot to talk about with the match. Orange Cassidy really worked from behind in this match, and he did eventually get the win on Butcher, but not without this being a bit of a hassle for him.
Yeah, he got the hell beat out of him for the majority of the match. I mean, this one of those matches where I think I was on the phone, and so like I was watching. And the thing is, I like Orange Cassidy, I like Butcher and the Blade. But I guess I just wasn't really super excited to watch this match, and it might have been the placement of the match too, because I'm used to Orange Cassidy kind of recently like kind of jumping off the show a little bit, and so I was just kind of watching it, and I was just
him
like,
being put in the second hour was an interesting
it's
kind
right,
of experiment as far as he was concerned. I thought the first hour, by the way, I just want to say, I thought the first hour of this show really burned. I thought it was really, really good. I think the story beats. I felt like, damn, I'm into this world's title story. Bryan's back, and like I think the BCC and Elite is the best story on the show. I'm very into this. This is probably, to me, and we're only 3 weeks into it, so maybe I'm jumping the gun here with an extreme statement. I know Phil Lindsay likes to accuse me of living in the moment a little too much. He calls me a victim of the moment. Maybe he's right. But so far, I have not, for AEW, they have done this a lot over the years. It's been kind of one of their go-to, their bread and butter. This is the most, so far, I've really enjoyed a faction warfare story in AEW.
I would agree with you. And I think it's because, being really honest, AEW's done a lot of factions. I have never really been a fan of like any of the factions except for the Elite. Like really, like the Inner Circle. So like I was at the first Dynamite when it like first came about, and I was with my boys. And we looked at each other, and I was like, I just cheered for Jack Swagger showing up. I was like, we go 10 years ago. I was not cheering for that dude. And so when that happened, I was like, okay. But then I watched it, and like I said, I thought Jericho's a bit of the bubbly and all that stuff. I thought that was a hilarious run, but I just wasn't a big fan of the Inner Circle. I felt like it was just too. I don't know. They started doing like those leather vests and stuff. It just really, I got like a pretty boy version of DOA from that, and I hated DOA back in Attitude. I hated them, so I was like, I'm not feeling it.
I can see the idea. Like with me, the Inner Circle, the thing I struggled with was the fact that I couldn't necessarily believe it was Santana and Ortiz were kind of the odd men out there, because I couldn't necessarily believe that the two of them on their own would have anything to do with Chris Jericho.
Yeah, I think, especially Sammy at that time, I thought that was kind of, for me, I knew a little bit about Sammy, I guess, going into that first Dynamite, and obviously I think he started with Cody, the first match of that night, which was a pretty good match. And I remember thinking, I was like, man, he might have a, this is me, I'm like, man, he might have a future as a babyface, like literally during the show, and he turns heel at the end of the show, and I was like, well, I don't know nothing about wrestling no more. Clearly, like, all right, I don't know nothing.
But hey, every good babyface.
You're right. I don't know if there's a way Sammy ever goes back face, at least for a little while now. I mean, because he's doing. I think he's great as a heel. I just think he's a guy you want to hate. Honestly, I mean, I feel like, and so when he joined Inner Circle, I thought like, I just felt like the matches were good, and I think, but the story of them in the faction, I really didn't buy into it. And it's kind of like you said, Santana and Ortiz. It's like, why are you here? Like, why are you here with them? And then I guess the Pinnacle, like I like the idea.
It just didn't execute well. And that's the reason why I think the reason I'm into this one is because we know the Elite as a faction. We've known them for a decade as a faction.
Yep.
They're 2016. But we've known them for a really long time as a faction. And it's like BCC has really come together as a group, and we've come to know them over the last year as a solid foundational group. And so it's like we have no question about either of these two teams in their allegiances to each other. And so it's making the story of this. I think the fans have more attachment to who's in this to now make it feel a lot more personal.
What the factions were always missing to me is star power. And because Sammy's great, Jake Hager's cool, Santana Ortiz, great team. But I don't think the investment from fans in them away from that group would have been nearly as strong as, and that same thing for the Pinnacle, same thing for the other factions. But it's like with this, you have literally nothing but main eventers. And even though Yuta is probably like the lesser of all of them, he went out and got over himself when he got into the BCC. Like he went out there and got his ass beat by Mox, and people were going crazy for this dude. And so I think with Claudio, with Mox, with Danielson, Omega, Hangman, the Bucks, this is the fabric of AEW in terms of like when you think of AEW, these are the guys you mostly think about. And so to have them all in one story together, you can't go wrong with it. You just can't, to me, you can't go wrong with it because you're talking about, Bryan Danielson, arguably the greatest wrestler of all time. Maybe, he's definitely one of the greatest. You have Kenny Omega, my GOAT. You have Mox, who is, one of the most crazy, because I've never seen anybody bleed as much as him, obviously, but he's a star. Mox is a star. He's like one of the aces. Hangman, another ace in AEW. So you got the Bucks, obviously one of the greatest, if not the greatest tag team of all time, all in one big feud. I don't think there's ever been a time in wrestling, period, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think there's ever been a time in wrestling where you had that many stars and groups all in one story. I can't think I'm thinking them back to, back in the day.
Maybe like
NWO
and like
I don't know. NWO versus like Sting, Luger, Savage is probably to me the closest thing to that. Because even with Corporation, it's like you had Taker, you had I guess the ministry, the corporate ministry is probably, you had Taker, Triple H.
But I get what you're saying though, because the issue at that time was that back then faction warfare wasn't just like 3 or 4 people. It was like, hey, half the company's in this faction, and every heel is going to be this faction.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah, I think this is one.
Finish up this show here,
dude. Yeah, I'm like.
So main event time: Adam Cole versus Daniel Garcia. Daniel Garcia with new music. And new entrance.
Yeah.
So this was Adam Cole's return to the ring. We weren't sure if we were ever going to see Adam Cole back in the ring. By the way, Gotham Guy says a Mercedes Moné siding with the Outcast and Thunder Rosa returning to form an unholy alliance with Britt would be the jolt we need. It's a good idea.
I like that.
But yeah, so this main event, Adam Cole, baby, wrestling Daniel Garcia. I think Daniel Garcia was the right kind of first opponent for Adam Cole here.
For sure. I agree.
I think he basically worked the type of match that Adam Cole kind of needed to have to start out. And there's not a whole lot to say about the match. He worked the match, but I will tell you, I got tagged like 4 or 5 times when this match ended.
Oh, boy.
Everybody could hear my screams from across the country, apparently. I said last week, please not Jericho. Please don't suck Adam Cole into a Chris Jericho feud.
I think I said the same thing.
Cole to a feud.
I think I said the same thing last week because when they announced the match, I was like, oh, hell. I was like, it was so obvious. And then when they closed the show with it, I was like, nah, man. I think I texted my boy.
There's a hope for me that I'm like, look, Matt Jackson's hurt. Pivot. Have Adam Cole get jumped by the BCC or something, and then
nope.
Bring him into this story. Do something, but please don't be Chris Jericho. I was sitting next to Sean Ross Sapp. We're watching this in the line for picking up his car,
right?
And I said to him, As soon as the match ended, I'm like, oh, this match ended with 4 minutes to go. Something's happening. And I looked at him and I said, I swear to you, if it's Chris Jericho, I'm going to be pissed. And so Britt Baker comes out first, and they actually kiss right at the boom moment in his song, which I thought was cute. And then they get confetti and streamers, all of that lands all over them.
That was a bit. I thought it was a bit
It's
excessive.
They've
Yeah,
never
I
done
was
that
like,
for any babyface.
yeah, I was like,
AEW,
okay.
let alone one who didn't like win a title.
Yeah, I was like, okay.
It's like, okay, I'm happy that Adam Cole's back, but I mean, I don't know. I thought it was excessive, but I get you're
Yeah.
trying to sell the show that's coming up next. It was literally on the mat the whole show. So, and on the ring apron, they were doing everything in their power to sell you.
So all
Hey,
access.
watch AEW All Access coming up next. And so Cole is celebrating, and then out comes Chris Jericho. His music hits just to make sure this crowd got to sing Judas.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
He helps Daniel Garcia to the back, but the whole time he keeps looking back at Adam Cole, and Adam Cole's looking at him, but nothing ever actually transpires, and we go off the air. But we now know Adam Cole probably feuding with Chris Jericho, probably facing Jericho at Double or Nothing. I mean, that's a good first feud for Adam Cole. Don't get me wrong. I'm just sick of Jericho, but I get it.
I'm gonna be honest, man. You know, the one thing I've always loved about AEW is how they slot people in and out at different times because it allows people to be fresh. I've been Chris Jericho out for a while, and look, I thought when he was Ring of Honor World Champion, I thought he was doing some great in-ring work. You know, he rarely misses in-ring wise. But from a story perspective, I need a damn break, man. Like Jericho, like I said, Jericho's a legend. The one thing I thought is that 2 years ago when he was facing MJF and all out, and he was like, if Jericho lost, he retired or something like that. I remember the vibe on social media then. There was a lot of people that were like, I hope MJF wins and Jericho retires. And I was like, and me, I was like, man, nah, I mean, I'm like, nah, because I actually thought he did pretty good with the story, obviously with the, the 5 with Juventud and all those things. I thought that was pretty good. But like, I remember that was the feel that some people were like, we're tired of him. He hasn't. And I remember, I don't really want to bring it up, but when they were getting on Jericho that one time when NBA Twitter went on him, say he looked like baby mama, which is very, very terrible to say. But at that time, I think there was like a kind of feel, people kind of like, well, we don't need him that much because there's so many other talents that are there.
What happened to Jericho and the Black
the House of Black?
House of Black.
He clearly nixed that idea. Which and it's, what's interesting though? I think honestly, when you look at it, it would have been Sammy, Danny, and Jericho versus House of Black if that was going to be the thing. Sammy's in the title feud. Dan Garcia's kind of doing his own thing, which they just announced a match for him tomorrow, which is crazy. But like, so I get it that okay, but then it's like, okay, what does House of Black do next? Like what's next for them? And I think it leaves them kind of out to dry when they're the trios champions. So they need a like Jericho Appreciation Society putting them over in a feud would have been pretty good. And it would allow Jericho to not be the central focus of a feud one-on-one. And I just feel like Cole, I just wanted Cole to go a different route. But I guess the problem is that when I was going down the list, I was like, who's Cole going to feud with heading into Double or Nothing? Who I wanted him to feud with was probably somebody he was not going to feud with, and that was Darby Allin. That's who I want him to feud with because I feel like there's something there. But it's going to be hard to pull that one off now because Adam Cole is obviously a huge babyface, and Darby Allin's still a huge babyface. So I was like, oh, great. There's nobody left that they have. They can't, I don't find anybody else. I'm like, I thought maybe they could have did Hobbs and Cole, but I was like, probably too soon for that. Hobbs just got the title. Don't see Cole losing. I guess if Jericho's going to put him over, that's cool, but I don't want to see it. because I think they're gonna bring Britt into this with Jericho being a part of it, which is why she probably was out there. I don't want
Oh
this
no.
to
I
happen.
hope not.
I mean,
But folks,
Jericho has Anna Jay around him too. I don't.
but they just brought her name into the main event, into the title.
It's just too much.
Too much.
It's too
But
much,
folks,
man.
we've reached the end of Day After Dynamite. I know this is normally where I talk about ratings, but I ain't got ratings yet because I did the show early. So somebody else is gonna have to talk about ratings because I will be really busy with my Thursday. I'll kind of be all around. But if you are in LA and you're hitting up shows, I'll probably be at as many as I can tomorrow. So let me know. Tweet at me. True God, make your plugs.
Well, I have 2 Twitter accounts now. They reinstated my other account,
They did.
which took 4 years. Shout out to all the celebrities that follow me on that account. I missed that account so much, which is True God Immortal. Of course, you can follow me as you see under here, DAR True God. Follow me, not follow me. Yeah, you can follow me actually on Spotify, I think Apple Music at True God. And check out definearevolution.com, which is where I write articles from time to time. I have not done it in some time. I think that's everything. Oh, I have a book coming out later on this year, and I'm working on a mini series. So that'll be out in 2024. Trying to stay busy, trying to make things happen. I think that. Oh, I'm sorry. I have a new album. We're in the process of making. I'm trying to get Will to send me a beat or two for
I
this
have
album
one
too.
that I'm going to send you. Remind
Okay.
me to send it to you tomorrow.
I got
Or
you.
I guess when I get back. I'll send it to you Friday.
For sure. It's called Older Gods Do Evolve, which is actually a play on, if you know Wu-Tang, they had a song called Older Gods off of Wu-Tang Forever. So we put mixing it together. That's coming out in probably late April, early May. Shout out to my brother Shaka Apollo. And watch Ring of Honor, Supercard of Honor, and check out Commander's entrance. And yeah, so I think that's everything. I probably got more, man. I'm busy. So
You're
I got
working,
so much
and I
stuff.
love that.
Yeah.
Support
Always.
True God. G Bro says Tony sees in Yuta what Vince did in Cena. I don't know if he sees that much,
That's
but
strong.
I think that's a little strong. But
That's strong.
I think he definitely sees something in Yuta, and I think the fans do too.
For sure.
Broadway Joe says, personally, this tells me Jay is E-bound. If Jay was going to debut, ruining Adam Cole's grand return would have been the move. Yeah, I have that feeling too.
I don't want to see Jay White in WWE, but yeah.
And shout out Cabbage Sensei says, Will, always killing with the content. Thanks for another good stream. Thank you, Cabbage Sensei. Thank you, everybody who tuned into this very, very late edition of Day After Dynamite. Thank you for being here. I think we are going to do an edition of Ask Grapsity tomorrow, but I don't know when or how we're going to do that. But we will figure that out. And once we do, we will tweet about that. Thank you to Denise Salcedo for letting me borrow her house to do this show with my loud ass voice that's probably keeping her up at the moment. But you can also check out all the podcasts I'll be doing this week because I got a ton of them. I will be on both night 1 and night 2 of WrestleMania's post shows right here on youtube.com/Fightful. And those will be look at that. I got Grapsity coming up here, youtube.com/Fightful. Got Ask Grapsity, Fightful Select. And then I got 2 nights of WrestleMania reviews. This is going to be great stuff. And then also over on Denise's channel, I got 2 episodes that we're doing. We're doing the After the Week, and then we have another special show we're doing after that. So lots of content here. It's great stuff. I'm going to go to sleep so I can enjoy my WrestleMania week. It begins tomorrow morning. Folks, thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Day After Dynamite. For True God, I'm Will Washington. We'll see you next time. Have a great day. Or I guess night. Whenever you're watching this. Peace.